Alright, hey guys, and welcome back to another Star Wars Unlimited video. Today I've got something a bit more special for you guys. It's not just me opening a booster box. I've got before you here the first ever Star Wars Unlimited draft deck that I built this earlier this week. But what's really special about this is also the first time I have ever done draft in any card game. So I'm going to kind of walk you through how I built the deck. And as you can see here, it's extra special because I actually built a Palpatine Cunning deck. So a green yellow Palpatine deck, and as you can see, it was a ramp deck, and I was able to get Palpatine out onto the board. But before we go into the deck here, I figured we'd start the video off by opening the pack that I got. Spoilers, I did only end up winning one match, but we're going to go over why that was, some of the things I've learned, lessons learned, mistakes I made, misplays, and things that I did quite decently. I think I was pretty proud of myself. And I'm also going to open up my weekly play booster here. So let's do our pack that we won first from just winning one of my games. There were 3 games played. I won one of them. I could have won 2, but we'll get into that. I definitely made a misplay. Let's see if we can get something decent from here. No hyperspace yet. Okay, 1 hyperspace, nothing special. Our rare 5th brother. Oh, sorry, uncommon. Our rare is... Oh, okay, redemption. I needed 1 more of those. And a foil Fang Fighter, nothing crazy. Now let's open up my weekly play pack. My first time opening one of these. It was very hard to resist opening this, here rather than at the LGS. Oh my goodness, this pack is not easy to open. Look at it. See, this is why you want paper packs. Oh my god. This is scary to open. Missed the paper packs already. So you get these by going to your LGS and just participating, going down and playing in an event. They say you can get it from trading as well. You get 3 cards with the chance of 1 being a foil, and from the looks of it, I think I might be getting a foil with that curvage. Maybe. We'll see. I don't know if that's just the way I'm holding the packs or what. No, that's definitely a foil. That's super curved, hopefully. Alright, so the cards you get in here, I think the way it works, the commons are cards that you otherwise got in like the starter decks and stuff. So Vader's lightsaber you can get in a hyperspace, which is nice. Admiral Modi, which is, funny enough, I'm actually trying to build a deck with this guy, so whatever. Not the most exciting, but I'll take it. The hyperspace foil I actually want the most is Greedo. You guys know why at this point. Let's see what we get in. Okay, that's a nice one. Not the most, exciting card itself to get, but hey, it's a foil. I think the foil pull rates are like 1 in 3 packs, maybe, from what I've seen. It's hard to tell. But this is also just an amazing looking card and playable in some decks, so it's always nice to get a playable one. Super pringly. They do sort of like a wave foil on these, which looks really nice in person. My goodness. Okay, I'm happy with that. Makes it worth going down to your LGS and playing and supporting. Now let's get into the deck itself. So as you can see, I played Emperor Palpatine. Now what were my other leader choices? So we had a choice of 3 leaders that you open from your packs. The leaders that I turned down were 2 Boba Fetts. Now, you might be like, oh my goodness, you'd have to be crazy to turn down Boba Fett in a draft, right? Maybe, but I really wanted to play Palpatine, and when you see the deck that I built, you'll understand why. So now that you see what leaders I had a choice of, so it's either Boba Fett or Palpatine. I went with the Palpatine because I wanted to have some fun. I wanted to, kind of try and build a deck that maybe nobody else is playing Palpatine. So look at what I got. This was absolutely crazy. I have to say to myself, once again, this is the first time I've ever drafted in anything. I've never drafted in any other card game. Literally my first time drafting. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. How did I do drafting my first deck? Obviously, you can't exactly seal the cards that I had to choose from, but let me know how I did building it. I think I got really lucky, but I also was pretty proud of how I put this together. So I immediately started noticing that, hey, not only did I get 1, 2, or I got 3 super laser technicians, so I'm like, okay, we are definitely leaning towards Palpatine here. I mean, this is a playset of one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful card in the game, at least for ramping. Super good for green. So I'm like, all right, we're definitely leaning towards Palpatine. And then we pulled not 1, not 2, but 3 seasoned shore troopers. Gonna be honest with you though, I didn't actually get to play this card too much. A lot of times I was more so trying to play my my super laser technicians to ramp up into some of my higher costed cards, and you'll see why. Because my early game, while strong, my deck was definitely a bit more weighted, heavy in the front and heavy in the back. There weren't a lot of like mid tier cards. Now you might be like, oh, Admiral Piet, right? But You'll see why. And this guy actually came in use. I got an Admiral Piet combo off with a certain card, which is coming up, and it was so awesome to actually pull it off. It's the reason I put him in the deck, honestly, because there's a couple of high cost cards that I was hoping would kind of combo with him. And then we got Snowtrooper Lieutenants, which actually came in very strong use for me. There, as you can see, so far every card that I've shown you have been Imperial cards, so this guy combos really well with Imperial, which worked out really nicely. Viper Probe Droid I used a few times to take a look at my opponent's hand. Since I am still pretty new to playing the game, especially in person, it's hard for me to retain like knowledge of remembering all the cards they have and what specifically combos they might have coming up, but it was useful. And of course, for the command aspect, I'm also doing this in order of cost, so you can see we're getting all the 2 costs out of the way. And as you can see, I have a lot of 2 costs. So that's it for ground unit 2 cost. Now we moved into Cell Block Guard, which was just, a good Imperial unit for blocking, which did come into play quite a bit. Sentinel, from what I was able to gather, is very strong in draft. Anytime Sentinels were hitting the board, it was just such a game changer. Unfortunately, I was never able to play Jabba the Hutt. I put him in the deck because I didn't have too many other amazing options. It was between this and Gamorrean Guards, but I don't have a lot of yellow Cunning units, so I chose to put Jabba in there. I also didn't have a lot of tricks in my deck, so I more so went with the Jabba for the 2/8 body, which I thought can come into play, and kind of just be a nice beefy body to clog up the board. And I think I only had like 3 tricks, but unfortunately he actually never hit my board. He was always getting resourced or never drawn. So here is one of the cards that I misplayed on really big, and this costs me my first game. My first game, I definitely played against somebody that had way more knowledge about playing than I did. Keep in mind, this is only my second time playing in person at this draft event, once at the pre-release, and then once for this draft, and then all my other games have just been played periodically on Force Table, so not a lot of experience with the game. So I knew Bosk was a really good card, so I wanted to put him on my deck. I also completely forgot that Ambush does not attack the base. You can't attack the base with Ambush, so I played him down expecting to be able to rush the base, and then I forgot. So he ended up not having really the effect that I wanted, but then the even bigger misplay that I made, and I didn't want to be that person that's like, oh, sorry, I thought this is what the card did, but it doesn't. Can I like take that play back? No, I'm not that kind of person. I will ask my opponent sometimes if they would like to do that, if it seems like they definitely regretted a play, but I'm not the type of person to do that myself. The bigger thing that I forgot is I was playing events and I was not dealing 2 damage to a unit. And, the person I was playing against, they were taking it pretty serious. They definitely were not saying to me, hey, take a look at your boss card there. Or, hey, you forgot, you sure you don't want to ping damage? So yeah, they wanted their free pack because it was 3 games. Every game you win, you get a free pack. So I don't blame them, right? Like, I'm not expecting my opponents to correct me on my mistakes like that, even though I may do the same for others. At the end of the day, I'm just going there to have fun, right? Like a pack, at the most, I'm going to win 3 packs, right? Like, I mean, let's be real here. We're going there to interact with people, have fun. But some people, they definitely want to play super competitively, get as many packs as they can, and I don't blame them. So I was forgetting to ping 2 damage with Bosk for like 2 turns, and yeah, that was. But I learned from my mistakes. This is just a lesson in reading your cards. Like, make sure that you're constantly reading your cards, even when they're on the board. Just like remind yourself. This was the first time I ever played Bosk. I didn't put him in a Force Table deck before. So, it was just my mistake. I learned from my mistakes. It is what it is. So, one of the most powerful cards in the game. I misplayed him in 2 different ways, but it is what it is. Mercenary Company. So that's it. I only had 1 5-drop unit. So like I said, I'm kind of light in the middle, right? I don't have really any 4 or 5 drops. It's just 2 drops, a couple 3 drops, and then everything else is pretty high. But there's a reason, right? Because you can see I got all the ramp. I got some ramp here. This Mercenary Company, I actually don't think this ever hit the board. I think it was always getting resourced in lieu of this guy, if I ever had the opportunity to put it down. I'm going to tell you guys right now. This ATST won me a game. Why? Because I comboed him with Admiral Piet. Hopefully I'm saying his name right. I put this guy down. He actually survived on the board because, most people are not intimidated by him until it starts getting to the end game, or if you forget his abilities or whatever. But my opponent knew what he did, but I was able to put down the ATST with Piet, which when you put down a unit that costs 6 or more, they gain ambush so you can attack the round they're played. But what makes this super deadly, I'm actually really tempted to build a deck. I'm working on a deck right now that involves ATSTs. because they have overwhelm. So what this means is normally ambush can only hit into a unit. So let's just say, for example, your opponent has a 2-3 on the board, right? 2-3, kind of like middle of the road. Like a lot of units have sort of like 2 attack, 3 defense, or 3-2. Let's say it's a 3-2 on the board. Normally, when you have an ambush unit, it would just 6-7, it would kill it. But with overwhelm, not only do we get a way to rush into that 3-2, but I'm also dealing 4 extra damage to their base. So it's like putting Piet with the ATST is essentially like kill a unit, and then deal somewhere between like 3, 4, 5, even 2 damage to the base. That's pretty substantial, and he actually won me a game. Dropped him down, and I buffed him up with, well, I shouldn't say the ATST won me the game. There is another card that may have helped. I'm sure you may know what it is. That buffed up my attack to 8. That dealt even more damage to the base. So it was like deal 6 damage to the base, kill a unit. I mean, it was just brutal. My opponent knew it was over at that point. But all I'm saying is, in draft, in sealed events, do not underestimate the ATST. Even if you don't get the combo to get ambush, this overwhelm does wonders. Really good. Never got to put down my reinforcement walker. I only had one. Unfortunately, I just never drew it. Even into the games that got that late. And I was so excited to have these units on my board. Unfortunately, my games never went that long. So I ended up in my first game, I faced a Hera, which was unexpected. I didn't expect anybody to pick a Hera, but it actually ended up being really strong. I went up against a Sabine card in that deck, which, she gains this trait where when there's 3 aspects on the board, she can't be damaged by a unit, but you can deal direct damage to her. She was a headache to get rid of. That card actually won my opponent the game, probably. So I never really was able to last long enough into the game to draw enough cards. The Hera game is the one that I misplayed on big time. There's one more misplay that I did that I'm going to get to. But that was a long kind of control-ish game. Here's another thing that I quickly realized in draft, how important space units are. So if there's one thing I learned, do not only draft a few space cards. Unless your deck is built around like aggro type ground units. I made a huge mistake in that. Here's all of my space units. I got a Star Viper, which of course is really good. Unfortunately, at the time when I took this, I didn't even notice that it's a heroic, which if I were to play this, it would have costed me 6. Pretty much just a resource card. So really, I just had the Star Viper, the 7th Fleet Defender, which is really good at 3-2 shielded in space, is excellent, one of the best space units you can get. And TIE Advance, which did come into play for me a couple times, getting those 2 experience tokens on Imperial. And as you can see with my deck, I have a lot of Imperial units, and that's it. Those are the only space units I had. And the issue that I ran into is my opponents were typically playing more space units than me, and I got absolutely swamped and overwhelmed. So my lesson has been learned, and I did have a sideboard here. I'm going to show you the sideboard of like the cards that I didn't put in my deck that I could. If there's one thing I learned, and you guys should definitely keep in mind too, take space cards. I'd say put at least 6 of them in your deck, and even putting ones in that may only have 1 attack seems worth it, because people may have ones in there with 1 defense. Space cards right now for Premier is, it's pretty limited. So now let's go over my cards that are not units. We got 2 resupplies. So as you can see, I had 3 ramp cards, 3 super laser technicians, 2 resupplies. I was ramping off the charts. One game, just to show you how amateurish I was, still learning how to play in person compared to on Force Table. Force Table, everything's automated for me. It's just a lot easier to keep track. I got carried away, and I forgot that like you don't have to resource every turn. Oh my god, I felt like such a noob. So the game where I was playing against Hera, I had like 10 or 11 resources, or maybe even 12 resources on my board. It was ridiculous. And my opponent's like, at the end of the game, they're like, yeah, you may want to stop resourcing after you've hit like 8 or 9 resources, right? It's like after that, it gets kind of ridiculous. And I'm like, yeah, you're kind of right. This is amateur mistakes, but I had resupplies, I had super lasers. I was having fun with the ramp. This was actually passed to me from the person next to me. This was not in one of my packs, so somebody actually passed on Overwhelming Mirage. My table did not have a lot. There was somebody picking yellow cards, cunning cards, but there weren't really any players, I think, picking Imperial, so I kind of had Imperial all to myself for the most part. They may have been picking Imperial, but maybe it wasn't their focus. I'm honestly not sure, because somehow I wound up with an Overwhelming Mirage, and this, believe the hype, my goodness, this absolutely in draft is unbelievable. I didn't have any used against me from what I remember, but I put this on my ATST, which turned my ATST into an 8-9 with ambush uh, overwhelm, which won me my final game. It was the one game that I did win. But my goodness, this card is just, this should be a legendary. Like seriously, this should have been a green command legendary, no doubt. Believe the hype. If you ever see this in a pack, this card is so good that if I'm playing a deck where I would need to pay 7 for it if I didn't have the correct aspect, I would do it. I mean, heck, this card is so good that even in constructed, I think paying 7 for this, paying the aspect penalty is probably also worth it as maybe like a one of, like, it's just bonkers. I had 2 surprise strikes, and to my surprise, well, maybe not surprise, this card was extremely valuable in winning games. There were some times where I used it, even if I just needed like 2 more damage, I felt okay using this to kind of get over that hurdle and kill a unit that I maybe otherwise would not have been able to use. But the best use that I found for this is applying it to a unit and just going for their base, right? Giving that extra surprise damage, putting it on a space unit, smacking them for 3 extra damage that maybe they weren't expecting, seemed to do really well. And I do want to reiterate, right? I'm not an expert on this game. Yes, I went 1 and 2, but the games that I did play, it's not like I got blown out, right? Like a lot of my games did actually come down to the wire, and I was going up against players that had way more experience than I did. So it was, it's not like I was just making silly mistake after silly mistake. Yeah, I was making mistakes. Sometimes, sometimes I'd forget to tap like my resources, and I'd have to be reminded. Just amateur things for people like me that don't play card games in person too often. But yeah, I mean, it's not like I don't have an understanding of the game. I definitely understand. I know what cards are probably really good in draft. And as you can see from what you've seen of my draft deck, like, obviously I know what cards to pick, right? If I didn't know what cards to pick, I wouldn't be picking cards like I have been, right? It almost feels like a constructed deck. I'm very proud of this draft deck, I have to say. Um, Snapshot Reflexes, this came in use quite often. Really good card in draft. Just gives a +1/+1, and you can attack with the unit that you applied it on. Just great element of surprise, being able to knock out units that maybe your opponent wasn't expecting you to in that turn. I was able to utilize this once, and this is an incredibly good card. I used this on my opponent's Boba Fett. Oh my goodness, this card is so good against Boba. Actually, sorry, no, Leia. I used it against Leia. She was out as a unit on the board, so I exhausted her, and then she couldn't ready the next turn, but I actually did end up getting rid of her before that turn even happened. But still, being able to lock down super aggressive units, especially leaders with this card, is just so good. And just to recap, I did play the Hera. My second match was against a Leia, a red Leia. That was brutal. That was probably the roughest match that I had. At least the match against Hera was a really long control match. It went on for a good amount of time. It was really close. Oh, and I forgot to mention the other big misplay that I made was actually with Overwhelming Barrage. I overwhelming barraged my Emperor Palpatine. He became a 6 attack. And I did this at the start of the turn, and I did not come prepared with like dice, or I don't have the tokens. The acrylic tokens are sold out everywhere. I actually ordered some that are coming in the mail, but it's probably going to be a while. Like some off-brand one. And he had 6 attack, but I didn't put any marker on the card to remind me that. And what I'm going to do from now on is I'm just going to like leave the card underneath, either like this or like whatever. I'm going to keep the card under so that I remind myself, because it actually lost me the game. I could have won against this guy that was a really good player with that Hera deck. He knew what he was doing. And yeah, he had the only unit he had on the board was a 5/5. I believe it was that one that like gives +2/+2 if you have a leaner unit on board. And I thought I only had 4 attack on Palpatine, and I could have actually killed it with 6 attack, and my Palpatine would have still lived, and I would have regained board control. But I passed the turn because I'm like, well, I can't really do anything. So I claimed initiative instead of attacking with Palpatine into the base or the unit, because my only out was to draw some like other card that could save me. And I remember him saying, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah. And then at the end of the game, or actually there was somebody standing by the table that was like, oh, by the way, you had 6 attack on your Palpatine. And the other guy playing did get a little upset about that, because I don't blame him, right? Like, don't give information in the middle of a game, because it could influence future decisions, right? Like, the people want to win. They don't want outside info. Like, should have been told to me at the end of the game. So I don't blame him for getting a little upset about that. But yeah, it just kind of, it's not like it bothered me, but in a way, it was really good that it happened, because now anytime I play Overwhelming Barrage, I will not forget that this card is buffing my units. So, man, it just bugs me because I really wanted to beat that guy. He was really good at the game, and I was so close to crawling my way back. No regrets, though. I also got a Waylay. Waylay came into use. Oh, there was a really interesting interaction with Waylay. Somebody traitorous my Star Viper on the space unit side, and I waylaid my Star Viper to get it back in my hand. So yeah, if you waylay a card that's been stolen with traitorous, apparently the ruling on that is that the card returns to your hand. So I thought that was kind of a little bit of a cheeky play. Waylay, awesome card, of course. And then, of course, Shoot First. This came in use as well. This is, to me, this is like a removal spell. It's like a 1-cost removal. Give unit +1 attack, and if it defeats a unit, deals its damage before they deal their damage. So essentially, if you can kill it in one hit with this card, then you don't take any damage. It's kind of treated as a removal spell, super cheap removal. This card, I feel, is definitely one of the best in Cunning. Now, there is one card here that I have kind of turned over here. I'm going to show you a crazy card that I could have taken but decided not to. I actually did have a energy conversion lab in my packs, and the reason I decided not to take it is, one, I would have been forced to play Boba Fett. I really wanted to do Palpatine, and you can see why with all my crazy ramp play. I just wanted to have some fun. Oh, and I should note, I did actually flip Palpatine. I think in all 3 of my games. I can't remember, one of the maybe in my I'm pretty sure it was in all 3 games. I flipped Palpatine. It was I know at least 2, maybe the 3rd. It's hard for me to remember, but I did flip him and steal units from my opponents, which I thought was awesome in a draft format, right? Like, what are the chances you're going to make it to turn 8, or not turn 8, but 8? What are the chances you're going to make it to 8 resources in the draft format with Palpatine and steal units? I stole a the smuggler, like I forget the name of the card, the 6-cost 4/4 with ambush with event interaction. I stole one of those. I stole oh, I don't remember. Nothing crazy. It's not like I was stealing big walkers or anything like that. But man, it felt really good to flip Palpatine over and steal a unit and just get a crazy 4/10 presence on the board. Super fun. Even, like I said, even though I knew that this probably wasn't like the best meta pick over Boba, it was super fun to do that to my opponents. But that's why I turned on energy conversion, because it would have forced me into Boba. I couldn't do double command. I just didn't have the cards for it. I mean, I guess I did, but yeah, I was really convinced on going Cunning green, Cunning command. So this would have paired pretty decently with a lot of cards in my deck, I have to say. Could this have won me a lot of games with Boba Fett? Yeah, but it is what it is, right? Like, maybe in the future when I'm looking to play a bit more with meta stuff, we'll go down that route. So here's what I turned down that I kind of had on my sideboard that didn't have in my main deck. I did have a Gamorrean Guards, and mistakenly I did have 31 cards in my deck. I did notice that. I kept 31 in there. I could had I noticed about that heroic spaceship earlier, I would have taken it out, but I noticed after the fact. So we had Gamorrean Guards, which I didn't put in because I didn't have enough Cunning units. Bib Fortuna I didn't put in because I just didn't have enough events, I guess. Like, I just didn't feel like I had enough events to really make him worthwhile. And I had a lot of 2-drops as it is. I do kind of regret not putting this in the deck. I did get 2 of these, and like I said, I lack space presence, and he actually would have done some work, this card, against some of my opponent's space units. There was that one, the 4/1 spaceship, that when it dies, you like draw 2 cards. If I would have had one of these on the board, it would have dealt with those. So I did get 2 of those. And then Bounty Hunter Crew, which I didn't play because I just felt like, I don't know, some of my other 6-costed units were probably a little bit of a better choice. I probably could have slotted out something for this to fit it in, but yeah, I didn't. So there you go. That's my first ever draft deck. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. How did I do? How did your drafts go? What kind of decks did you put together? I feel like I really looked at it. I'm very proud of the deck that I put together, to be honest with you. And I don't think I want to tear this apart. I'm probably going to keep it, like, all these cards together for the memories of it. Honestly, like, just seeing the first ever draft deck that I put together. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll maybe do more of these in the future when I play more drafts and kind of show you my draft deck and go over my thought process on the cards and how they performed in draft. Because yeah, I mean, there's a lot of booster box openings out there, right? But I'm sure some people want to hear about the cards and how they performed and my thoughts on them and stuff like that. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.